On April 15, 1947, history was made when Jack Roosevelt Robinson did what no African American had done before: play Major League Baseball for the Brooklyn Dodgers. His name alone was known throughout the country. It was revered and respected by African Americans, but scorned by whites. Why? Simply because he was daring to do what was thought to be crazy and illegal. As an African American during the first part of the 20th century, Jackie didn't have many rights. He couldn't eat in certain restaurants, stay in certain hotels, and everywhere he went, he was likely to find someone yelling racial slurs at him. Although Jackie Robinson was best known as a phenomenal baseball player, his ball playing led to his time as a civil rights activist. African Americans looked to him as he broke the baseball barrier, showing them as able to compete with whites and not inferior after all. Following the Dodgers' example, other teams started searching the Negro Leagues for African Americans to add to their teams. Jack, more commonly known as Jackie, was born on January 31, 1919, in Cairo, Georgia. He was the youngest of 5 siblings and was raised by his single mother. As a kid, he and his siblings learned traits of pride, determination, and self-respect from his mother. Jackie played 4 sports each year and lettered in all of them in college. As an athlete, Jackie was inspired by his brother Mac, the silver medalist in the 200 meters in the 1936 Berlin Olympics. When he dropped out of college, Jackie became a lieutenant in the Army and was arrested, then court-martialed, because he refused to move to the back of a segregated bus during training. From the end of the 1800s through 1945, African Americans were not allowed to play Major League Baseball, no matter how skilled or qualified they were. In fact, African Americans weren't thought of as people and were considered second-class citizens. They were excluded from public transportation and facilities, juries, jobs, and certain neighborhoods. There were many etiquette norms that were also common in a lot of places, especially the South. For example, one was that African American men couldn't touch white women in any way, or they would be accused of rape. Also, African American men couldn't shake white men's hands because that meant they were equal. African Americans also couldn't show public affection towards each other because it disgusted whites. In some places, it was really extreme in the fact that white motorists always had the right of way at intersections, regardless of the situation. When Jackie was signed onto the team, Branch Rickey, a Brooklyn Dodgers executive, made Jackie promise to not fight back and to turn the other cheek against racists. Both Leo Durocher, the manager of the Dodgers, and Branch Rickey believed that what mattered was not the color of the skin of a player, but their talents and abilities. Jackie's first Major League Baseball game with the Dodgers was on April 15, 1947. He was booed extensively at a lot of his games. Harassment towards Jackie was most notably done by the Phillies and their manager. The pressure was very intense, but Jackie never showed his anger. Negro League players across the country were excited for Robinson because he broke the color barrier on baseball, but were concerned for him at the same time. Harassment continued and went as far as people in the stands throwing things at him, and opposing managers and players yelling racial slurs at him.
What's the matter? Where you going, black boy?
Going away, black boy. We're the welcoming committee.
You'd better get out of here.
No, Jackie.
Go on. It just makes it tougher having you here.
We want to have a talk with you. We don't want you in this town, see? No matter what happens on the ball field, you can't fight back. That's going to be the hard part. You can't fight back.
You better not play tomorrow, get me? Get me?
He wasn't allowed in some restaurants and hotels and received death threats in the mail. Despite all the harassment, Jackie was imperturbable.
Hey there, big boy. What you all doing on a white man's field?
You better get your carcass out of there before you get rode out.
Here's a brother of yours, Jackie. Why don't you take him along? He wants to get into baseball, too.
While still playing for the Dodgers in 1952, he called out the Yankees organization for being racist because they hadn't yet opened their doors to African Americans. Although Jackie retired from baseball on January 5, 1957, he was still an avid civil rights activist. He raised money for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, to secure first-class citizenship for all American citizens, and served on the board of the NAACP until 1967. Throughout his whole life, he was told to be patient, take his time, and wait for things to happen and to fall into place. He responded by saying, "The Civil War has been over for about 93 years. If that isn't patience, I don't know what is." Jackie was pushing for the civil rights movement because he wanted it to happen. It needed to happen. Because of the publicity and respect he was now getting, he could talk to the Senate and push the civil rights movement. Jackie led the civil rights movement and opened the doors for African Americans to be first-class American citizens.
Jackie Robinson died on October 24, 1972. Although he may not live today, his mission towards first-class citizenship for all Americans lives today through the passed Civil Rights Act and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. The foundation, started by his wife Rachel Issom, provides scholarship and mentoring programs for students who want to better their education. Because of Jackie's persistence and assistance, the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. Without Jackie, the act might have never been passed, and today's society would be segregated, restrictive, and bigoted.